Yeah, here we are once again, Steve.
Yeah, I'm Steven. You're my dad, Dan. And yeah, we're doing another Yesshift episode. And this time, in honor of Billy Sherwood's 60th birthday, we want to talk about a band he's been involved with for like pretty much almost 2 decades now. Weird to think about. And Billy has like done so many things like connected to Yes and even outside of Yes, right, Dad?
Yeah, and sorry, I'm a little paused because I'm still getting over hearing it's his 60th birthday because I'm older than him. And I don't think of myself as an old person, certainly not Billy, because I've known him for so long. I remember Alan White being at his house, and it was like right before before Union happened. It was, let me think about this for a minute. So it was in 1990, and he showed me a CD. He said, "Have you ever heard of this band World Trade?" And I said, "No." And he pointed to Billy. He said, "We're starting to work with this guy." And I'm like, that was weird in itself, because I knew the band of as that lineup, and that was kind of my first introduction to him. And then I met him, became friends with him maybe a year later ish or so. Oh no, I met him on the Open Your Eyes tour in San Diego. Alan introduced us, and we anyhow. It's just weird. He's 60. Like, then how old am I? Don't answer that. But yeah, so like 20 years of CIRCA. That does sound weird.
Yeah, like they started in 2006, and
Close
yeah,
enough. If
yeah,
they
like
had a kid, it would be a legal age in most countries now.
yeah, and it does feel weird because Billy is like Billy and Jay and and John Davis, and they're kind of seen as the young guys in the band, even though they're
Senior citizens.
it's yeah, it's really funny, but yeah, they still bring energy to the band and
Oh yeah.
keep it. So I remember when we first found out about CIRCA, I think it was like during it might have been on yesworld.com there, because it was during the Yes hiatus.
Which one?
The like 4-year one or however long it was.
Yeah.
And I remember like we were like reading the news on it or something, and so we recognized the names, Billy Sherwood, Alan White, Tony Kaye. Billy brought Tony out of retirement basically, and I'm glad he did, because his keyboard sounds are like all over these records.
Yeah, he is such a recognizable sound that embodies the period he came from, but without sounding like it didn't age well or like it's dated. And there's a difference, I think, between something sounding like it didn't age well and being dated versus someone that has a sound like him that embodies a certain era, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like he brings in the, like, for example, like that, that type of thing. Although upon listening to these CIRCA albums, there were instances here and there where I'm like, oh, that's kind of something I'd expect from Rick Wakeman, like the whole. I don't know if that sounds any different the way I'm like verbalizing it, but yeah, just I think he sounds great on these, and all the band members who've been part of CIRCA, they've each done their part, and Billy is, he was really great at bringing them all together. But yeah, like I was saying, we recognized Alan, Billy, and Tony, and then I think at the time Jimmy Haun's name was new to me, so I was like, oh, who's Jimmy Haun? And I think you explained to me that he played guitar on Union, so it's like, oh, okay, so it still fits as like a Yes spin-off type thing.
Yeah. Yes has always been a spin-off of itself with so many incarnations, and a couple people going, 3 people in and out, back and forth, this and that. But another Yes nod to Billy, and we'll look at comments in a bit. And if you have CIRCA comments, folks, we'll get to those. Certainly ask questions or give your thoughts on the band or certain albums and songs, and we'll go through those in a moment. And Steve will show the album covers. But Billy has truly worn more hats than anybody that's ever been in Yes or that's ever worked with Yes, as far as wearing different hats for Yes work. He's written songs, played guitar, played bass, sings, he's engineered, he's produced, he's mixed. I mean, that's 7 major hats. The only thing he didn't do is design the logo and play the bongos, as far as I know. And drums are his first instrument, let's not forget.
Right. Yeah, and the thing about like the Yes spin-off idea is, I was reading up on the origins. Some of the things I'm drawing from are from like Bondagazoo and Yescography, and apparently an early idea was to maybe have Peter Banks in the band, and there's also some interview where Billy was like, maybe I can pull in Bruford and Wakeman, let's see what we can do. So it started off as one of those things where maybe it would have been an album that's like various artists, like a prog collective, but then they're like, this is music we should play live, when he and Tony were working together initially. And basically it was like, we should put together a band, not just like an album where we have some guests. And so
right.
I don't know if he necessarily approached Wakeman or Bruford. It's hard to imagine that like Bruford would have joined, and even Wakeman. Like, I was thinking about this earlier, like Rick after Straubs, like I think Yes is pretty much the only band that he's been a part of, other than bands that are very focused on his solo discography, like anything, and ABWH, of course.
Yeah, but just the thought of Wakeman and Peter Banks in the same band is interesting, and whether it would be Bill Bruford, Alan White, Jay Schellen, Scott Connor, you put a different drummer in there and it's a whole different band. But just those pillars of the melodics of Rick Wakeman and Peter Banks, and of course Billy on bass, that's such an interesting equation. And why wouldn't that band be able to name itself Yes? I mean, you got 2 original members.
Well, Yes was still going on at the time, but part of the idea for CIRCA was to sort of fill in that void while Yes, they didn't have new music out at the time. And it would be after a couple CIRCA albums that they'd finally put out Fly From Here and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, before CIRCA became a thing, did you ever think of like at this combination of musicians like Alan, Billy, and Tony together, or did your thoughts ever gravitate toward like other Yes musicians, like, oh, this would be a cool thing to happen?
I really didn't think about it until you and I started doing this show, or started talking about that ourselves. And then we kind of brought that into the show, where sometimes for fun, we bring up these different combinations. And having seen Union, like I saw Mraz and Bruford together, and then saw Union, and I saw the Drama tour, and of course I saw several tours of the classic lineup with Wakeman and White and Howe. So it was kind of like, in a way, I thought, okay, I've seen it all. What is there to even dream up?
You've seen all good people.
Right. And one bad one. But I love the latter. Anyway, it now that there's been like how many incarnations since even the latter, which was 2000, in the last 25 years, look what's happened, I guess, is my point. So now it's even more of a thing because there's so many more possibilities to move the tiles around to see what you end up with. But did you ever dream stuff like that up? Your brain is pretty active and creative.
So back then, I don't remember thinking much about like, what if these former Yes guys like got together, or Alan was technically still in Yes at the time, but like what if any combination of Yes musicians got together? I don't think that's anything I really thought of, because the Union tour, that felt like the where do you go from there? Why bother even imagining beyond that? That was like the ceiling for possibilities.
And before that, the ceiling was, okay, ABWH is happening. That's really weird. And then they're also, like I thought that was it. Then they did Union. But I want to go to comments real quick. I'm going to start at the top here in order. And this is interesting. Deaky, on watching us live on YouTube, does say CIRCA is basically Yes. And being that there's been so many incarnations of Yes, that's absolute, as much as ARW was. You've got these Yes is made up of Yes members. CIRCA, ABWH, ARW is made up of Yes members. So that's a valid point. And it might be the only band that can boast this, because the only other band off the top of my head that's been such an institution is Jethro Tull. But you don't see former members of them getting together in different versions. I mean, you see an individual member here and there covering Jethro Tull, but it's different. So that's an interesting and valid take, I think. Facebook Live, Robert Nasir, how you doing? Robert says, first time hearing anything by Billy and Chris. You and I can change the world. The more we live, the more we learn, the more we know. Yeah, I remember that. That's one of my favorites, actually. DK also says, I don't like Tony Kaye so much, to be honest. Do you mean as a person, the way he dresses, his hair, or his keyboard playing? And then Cassandra Belinda Edvlado says, happy birthday, Billy. And Vicky Esperanza says, been on and off for days. Robert says, going back to Mr. Nasir, says, totally reliving that era when Yes was suspended and CIRCA came along with other bands which might or might not have happened, e.g. Yoso, that's right. And, what a rough ride. The Outies.
The aughts, I think Robert means.
Oh, yes. And the thousands were, interesting.
Yeah, so my counterpoint, was there another comment?
Hello from Tim.
Yeah, Tim Williamson says hello.
In Bealton, Virginia.
Yeah. So my counterpoint to like why not call it Yes is that I do agree that if there are some tweaks, it could feel more like Yes. I think for the vocals, they want a certain type of vocals in order for it to sound like Yes. And some of the music, I think, also would have needed a bit more tweaking a little bit.
That part, I'd have to say, has a lot more flexibility than the vocals, because just take Machine Messiah and Awaken. I mean, there's, and the first song on Open Your Eyes, I'm having a brain fart.
New State of Mind.
Take New State of Mind and Wondrous Stories. The music already has so much latitude that I think if the right voice is there, you could do almost anything and it almost sounds like Yes. And I don't mean to sound like anyone could sound like Yes if they have the right voice. That's not what I mean. I mean, any collective musicians that have been in Yes can do Yes-esque music, and it could be qualified as Yes with the right vocalist. So that's what I'm saying. Not to totally counterpoint what you're saying to your counterpoint, but hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, like I get what you're saying, but I also want to add that it's not just the vocals, but also the vocals and how they interplay with the type of music that it is. Because with Arc of Life, you have John Davison, he has that type of voice, but the music felt different enough from Yes on those albums.
Yeah, and you got to have a Yes choir, no matter who it's made up of. You can't have just one strong singer and no one else really. There's a difference between backup vocals and a Yes choir. A Yes choir has always really been a hallmark of their sound in any incarnation.
Yeah. And, also want to add that I really, Billy's vocals are like really front and center on these, but it does make me wonder, like, if he had become Yes's vocalist in the late 80s, early 90s, what would this sound more like? Whatever Yes that would have been. I do think
or maybe CIRCA wouldn't have happened.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I think some of CIRCA feels like, especially the first album, like we'll go like step by step, like the albums and the lineup changes and all that. Like the first album, Circa 2007, especially feels to me like the evolution from Open Your Eyes and maybe bits of the latter. Like Alan has said in an interview from way back that the first Circa album, which he was on, if to him it felt a lot like that type of Yes, but like it's gone further beyond, like it's the latter plus, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I guess I could hear like bits of the latter, but not necessarily. Like when I think of the latter, I think of like the world music influences more so than what maybe Alan might have been thinking of. But yeah, and there were bits that also even remind me of like really these really big guitar moments that were on Union. Like, say what you will about Union, like it definitely could have been a better album, but Jimmy did the assignment, and depending on which parts, there are some parts by him, some parts by Steve Howe on Union, but there are moments where the guitar, I feel, really shines on that album, and it feels like some of that is kind of grown even further on some of this Circa material, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And maybe CIRCA really does fill that void. For those who don't know, Chris Squire nagged Billy for a long time to be the lead singer. And Billy was like, I'm not stepping into those. That's not, but here he is singing lead on other stuff and he sounds great. So I think it had absolutely more to do with the role and the sound of his voice, him feeling not fitting that lead Yes sound like you were alluding to, and not his own take on his own talents. Clearly, there's parts where he has sung lead harmonies, if you will, where his voice, he's got a really neat timbre to his voice. He sounds really good. And the work he did on Dave Kersner's album, the tribute to Genesis's Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, I was a little surprised by what I heard. I think there's a couple performances where if I didn't know that was Billy first, I would have been like, well, who is this? It sounds familiar, but I can't quite place it. He did a really great job on that, but I want to read one more comment before we go through the albums. Amos Hopkins is watching. Thank you so much as well. Robert Nasir says he's played bass, but also guitar. Yep. On Open Your Eyes in the latter, and even a bit of keyboards during the talk tour. And he played the keyboards on Open Your Eyes as well as Steve Porcaro did some of that. But as some folks might not know, as busy as Billy has been, he's also put himself out there, especially during lockdowns a few years back, as a drummer for hire. Yep. Not too shy to reach out on socials and interact with us ordinary people. I don't think any Yes fans are ordinary, but whatever.
We're a bunch of weirdos.
For sure. And then he says, way too cool. Yeah, he's a very down-to-earth, humble guy who's been very gracious with us. An interview that I believe Steve posted earlier today that we did a couple years back. We got comments and emails saying that was the best interview they ever saw of any Yes member. So that was a very high honor for us. And Billy's just, really kept it together, I think, given, what he's been involved with and at the different levels that he's been involved with it. So looking forward to having him on again sometime soon. We should do a fan Q&A with him in the membership site, actually.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. So we'll have to see about that. Yeah,
we'll reach out for sure. So you want to go through the albums, and folks chime in as we go through these. If you're familiar with them, if you're not, go buy them and give us your take. But Steve, over to you.
Yeah, so start with Circa 2007.
I do like the logo, by the way. It's nice and modern, futuristic. It's so far away from Yes. I like that. I like that it doesn't have any reflection of Yes whatsoever. to it, even though all these members are there. That's cool. That was smart.
I mean, you say that, but I think there's like a slight trace could be like the connectedness of the letters, but they're connected in a different way. You know, they're connected in a way where they're kind of separate, but because like you got the R split in half down the middle, but half of the R is the lowercase I. Like, like I've never really examined the logo that much until like right now. I'm like really appreciating how it is.
I like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, and there's a later version that had this look here. If it'll let me go to the next slide.
It should be in the middle to the right, like on the edge.
Yeah, I'm trying that. Or maybe if I use the arrow key, but okay, I might have to like stop sharing and then reshare the next one. But yeah, I have these in order, so that makes that simpler. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share again. Let's see. Yeah, so this is a later version of that CIRCA album, I believe.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah. Which cover do you like better?
I think I like this one because there's more dimensionality to it. You know, maybe there is a nice quaintness to the original because it's more subdued, but I really like how it pops out more on this one where you got, you know, the CIRCA logo against a sky and it's like a 360 view of like a real desert type thing.
Yeah, I wonder where that is.
Yeah.
Looks like Death Valley, possibly.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And so this... Oh, go ahead.
I see your arrow, by the way, when you're ready. On the right side, when you go near your right side, there it is. See it? So when you're ready, you can click on that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I want to like share a few thoughts on the tracks.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the tracks on this one are Cut the Ties, Don't Let Go, Together We Are, Information Overload. That one really leans into the technology sounding aspect.
Yeah.
Trust in Something, Keeper of the Flame, Life Going By, Look Inside, and Brother of Man. So as I was listening to this one, the notes that I put down are Together We Are reminds me of Luminous, which, you know, is from the most recent Yes album, Mirror to the Sky. Mm-hmm. It has that type of sound. It even has a nice steel guitar sound on it. And Trust in Something really resonates, you know, with what it's talking about. Of, you know, you want to be able to trust the powers that be. Like, it's very thought-provoking, I think. Yeah. And it also has a similar vibe to In the Presence Of. So on a couple of these tracks, it feels to me like there's a little bit of a Yes influence. Of course, you have Yes people on it, but also you can sort of trace how some of this could eventually like lead to Mirror to the Sky. Like, I feel like Billy's sound, you know, World Trade, Conspiracy, CIRCA, and some of his work with Yes, like there's a consistency that you can trace to different extents, I think.
Yeah, it's like his own musical DNA, you know, that gets woven through these bands, and it's used, different elements of it are used to different degrees depending on the project.
Yeah, and Keeper of the Flame, you know, that song title, I've seen people apply that to you know, Chris Squire and then Billy when he carried on from Chris, which I think is really sweet. But yeah, on that song and on Life Going By, I was really honed in on the, you know, Alan's drumming, and it's such a big sound, and it's really cool listening to like how he was back then. And Tony has a great bit on Look Inside where like he really shines. And I don't know if you knew this, but two of these tracks, Don't Let Go and Look Inside, were co-written by Trevor Rabin. And
I saw that. I didn't know that till I saw this and the credits are there. I did not know that before.
Yeah, so apparently he and Billy were working on stuff after the Talk tour in 1995. I actually have a quote here. So Billy explained on MySpace back in the day. Hey, remember MySpace?
Really?
Trevor had a few pieces of music that I'd written lyrics and melodies to in 1995. They never went any further. Fast forward to last year when I rediscovered the tape with the song ideas on it. I did a sketch of the track in my studio and showed it to Tony Kaye, who I'd already been working a lot with. He said, let's see if we can reshape it a bit to fit alongside the other music we have. From that point forward, we got more serious about making it a real track and had Alan White do his thing and add a few bits here and there, as well as Jimmy. So again, that's another example of, you find something you worked on a long time ago that wasn't finished, and then you repurpose it for something new.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really cool.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right.
So how would you rate it as a debut album?
I think it's a really strong debut. Like back in the day, I was a kid, so I couldn't I had to be really selective with what music I asked you for, because I wanted so much music and also so much books and comics, but I had to really figure out what do I want most. And I think if I listened to this back then, I would have listened to it nonstop for days. Really? Yeah, I think it feels, the production, if you listen to this today, it would feel like it came out today.
So, confession to the audience, I didn't have time to listen to all this that we're talking about before the show, and it's been a long time since I've heard this. Now I'm dying to hear it. I want to get back to it. So you were what, 12 when that came out?
Yeah, 12 or 13, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, depending on the month. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think it's a strong debut album.
And what about the debut song? Is that the best song as the first song, or should it be one of the other two you mentioned?
I think Cut the Ties is a strong opening song. Okay. That's one that I remember hearing years ago, because there would be video clips from the live concerts trickling out, like that, and Information Overload I was familiar with, but this was my first time listening to the album from start to finish, at least that I remember. Mm-hmm. So yeah, listening to all these was a great experience. Everyone should definitely try it.
Cool.
So next up, okay, I see. Yeah, so earlier the reason I couldn't switch was because the arrow wasn't here for that last one. I had to go to the left, so if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's the original version of the cover for the second album, CIRCA HQ, and the later, I guess it got re-released at some point with this other version with reflection on the golden CIRCA logo. That looks really cool. I like the sand dunes.
I like that. That's when Photoshop really started to advance.
Yeah, so CIRCA HQ came out in January 2009, I believe. And by that point, this album was recorded in 2008, and the year in which Yes were getting back together, touring again. And so since Alan was really busy and needed to commit to Yes, that was when the first CIRCA personnel change happened, and they got some random guy named Jay Schellen to fill in on drums.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, what's the album reference for that time period? That would have been Magnification, right?
Yeah. So 2001 is when Magnification came out, and wow. Yes, we're getting back into touring, but it would still be a few more years before they put out Fly From Here. So this is still filling out that void where there was no new Yes music quite yet.
Right.
Yeah, and the track list for this is If It's Not Too Late, which is an 11-minute song. Yeah, so that right there is a huge next step for that. And then the second track is titled Haun Solo, Jimmy Haun's guitar solo, which I really appreciate that he went with that pun. or maybe like Billy typed it and didn't tell him until later. Like, I don't know, but it's cool that they went with that. And it's a really beautiful sounding guitar solo. And then you get that segues nicely into False Start.
Yeah,
which,
I remember False Start.
Yeah, like that's a very appropriate tell because it starts out kind of slower and then kicks into high gear, like has a little shift and whatnot. And then after that is Chasing After Goats. Did I say goats? I meant ghosts.
Say goats.
Yeah, maybe that should be a new song. But yeah, Chasing After Ghosts and Set to Play. Set to Play has Tony all over. Like that's basically like it feels like a Tony Kaye interlude.
Yeah, and it's under 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I feel like those bits kind of remind me of how Fragile did like the solo pieces thing.
Yeah.
But on Fragile, they kind of stick out more to the point where it feels disjointed. Whereas here, like they feel like they segue nicely between the tracks.
Totally.
And then you get Ever Changing World, We Can Last, Twist of Fate, all intertwined, and Remember Along the Way. And what I realized while listening to these is on the first album, I was kind of honing more in on the bass and the drums. Whereas on this one, I feel like I was honing in more on the guitar and the keyboards. I don't know if maybe on one album they stick out more naturally or if I was just looking for them like intentionally. But yeah, like the band like really works really well together.
Yeah, and Remember Along the Way is 12 and a half minutes too, even longer than If It's Not Too Late, the first track.
Yeah, so it nicely bookends.
I was just going to say that.
Album. Yeah,
I like how they did that. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And 2009 was also a huge year. Well, first off, I also want to briefly mention Overflow. So that would be released a few years later and include material from the time periods of these first two albums, sort of leftover stuff. So you got The Story Goes, Shifting Sands, Life Goes On, Pure Intuition, Coming At You, Fate and Destiny, and Words on Paper.
So question, were those recorded during those other two previous sessions or just written and not recorded? So like, is Alan on some of these or?
Right. So I sort of assumed that they were recorded, but yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they could have been like finished later. Like, I guess I kind of assumed that maybe Alan is on some and Jay is on some, but maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe someone more knowledgeable can correct me on that.
This would be a first.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me go ahead and show the cover for that. So the first version of the album cover for this is probably the most simplistic of these album covers. Yeah, it's just like this. Like I looked at it and I wasn't even sure if it's official. So, but I guess maybe that was like it's just a white version of one of the previous album covers. But later on, wait, did I forget to put it in here? Oh wait, no, okay. Yeah, so it's this one. So later on, they re-released the next album, which I'll get to in a bit, and so on, and Overflow as
that's a sort of beautiful cover
double thing. And yeah, like this is definitely a vast improvement. You know, you got the Dove and you got the Pathway, which naturally reminds me of Roger Dean's stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's, you know, aping his style. It feels like it's sort of a different style.
Totally.
And this round window, like I guess it's a porthole, like a submarine type thing. Because you know, overflow and water. So I think that's really cool.
It is.
Yeah. But like I was saying, 2009 was a big year in that it was also when CIRCA and I think Bobby Kimball were gonna tour together, and you know there would be a set of like CIRCA stuff and Toto stuff, and I think maybe some other stuff, and stuff as well. And
did it happen, or did Yoso come out of that?
Right, so Yoso came out of that. I think initially they were gonna be like separate acts performing back to back, and then like these Italian tour dates got canceled, but then they decided, you know what, maybe we should make it one band. And so it became Yoso, and they released, they would later release an album called Elements, and that could be its own topic somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, they played Toto and Yes Stuff, and there'd be personnel changes like within that Yoso period, like 2009 to 2011. Jimmy Haun was initially part of it, and then he would leave that and leave CIRCA as well, apparently to focus on music for commercials and stuff, ads. And so that's when Johnny Bruhns came in, whom we've interviewed back in January.
Yeah.
And they also went through different drummers. I'm trying to make sure. Yeah, so they had Jay Schellen. At some point, Yoso had Lou Molino, who, has played with Trevor Rabin and ARW. And then Lou got replaced by Jody Cortez. The word replace always sounds weird to me when I'm talking about like actual people, but I think people know what I mean. Like he became the next drummer.
So bands associated with Yes go through all these personnel changes. It's almost like it's a infliction or something.
Yeah, and Yoso feels kind of like a spin-off of CIRCA, so it's like a spin-off of a spin-off in a weird way.
Indeed.
and so after that drum change, like after Jody Cortez, Scott Connor would be the drummer of Yoso, and Scott was part of a Genesis tribute band called Gabble Ratchet. And so after the Yoso thing ended, which, it was a mutual thing, they toured for a bit and put out an album, and CIRCA came back into gear. They had Johnny as a guitarist, and I'm not sure exactly why Scott couldn't come to CIRCA for this next album, but they got Ronnie Ciago, and we talked to him just a week ago. So you had Ronnie Ciago on drums, Johnny.
Go check that out, folks. Oh, he sent me something today I want to tell you about too later.
Okay, yeah. Right. So, and the original version of the And So On album cover looked like this, with like the ripples in the water.
What a difference. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I definitely prefer like the submarine thing with pathways.
Yeah.
So the track list for And So On was and the title track, of course. And I listened to this whole album for the first time, like before we interviewed Ronnie, and I gave it a listen again more recently.
Mm-hmm.
So And So On, Castaway, Till We Get There, Notorious, Halfway Home, In My Sky, True Progress, Each to His Own, and Life's Offering. So for this album, my notes right here. Let's see. Notorious. Like previously, I think I said True Progress was my favorite track on this, but listening again, Notorious I think kind of rivals it now. I quite like how the verses begin with like stuff like notorious is hatred, like these these things that bring us down are notorious things, and pointing out the things that are terrible. Halfway Home begins with like those classic like rocking Tony Kaye keys, and also has like a groovy guitar solo, that one. In My Sky is a gentler song with very beautiful guitar, and I like the lyric, in my darkest hours I know you will be there to take control like an anchor, and where it goes with that. Some really optimistic stuff on this album. And True Progress is also a catchy one, like the words out of sight, out of mind. They stick with you.
Mm-hmm.
And Life's Offering kind of sounded similar to the Keys to Ascension 2 song, Bring Me to the Power. Like it had a similar type of vibe, in my opinion.
Huh. I got to revisit that. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we had Johnny on the show, he mentioned that Billy wrote a lot of the guitar stuff, but that he Johnny wrote the solos as well. So
yeah.
And the impression I get is that this album was like in terms of looking at the timeline of things, it looks like this one was put together really fast. But I think if you listen to it, you wouldn't think that it was like rushed or anything, you know?
Yeah.
And after that, Ronnie and Johnny left the band. I think I might look at this timeline on my screen. Yeah, so 2011, you get Scott Connor back on drums and backing vocals as well. And then by 2012, you have Johnny has left CIRCA and Billy wants to switch from bass to guitar. And so he gets Rick Tierney, who's played with Alice Cooper and the Monkees. And, Rick Tierney becomes the bassist of CIRCA. So you got this lineup of Billy, Tony, Scott Connor, and Rick Tierney. And eventually they release Valley of the Windmill, which I think was recorded in 2015 and came out 2016.
And David Wendell, watching live on Facebook, cited earlier before we brought it up just now that it's an awesome album, and I love the cover as well. And a hello to us from Will's Rush page. Hello.
Oh, I wonder if that page is about Rush the band.
He says just popped on, was running a show on my page. Cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and follow your page there. That's awesome.
Yeah. And again, this is another really cool album cover.
Yeah. I love this.
Yeah. And it feels very proggy. Like this one is like Billy before this one came out was like, it's going to be super proggy. And he wasn't kidding. Like this one has 4 tracks, Silent Resolve, which is almost 15 minutes. Empire Over is almost 10 minutes. Valley of the Windmill is 7.5. And Our Place Under the Sun is 18 minutes, 43 seconds. So basically like close to the edge length, that one.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I've listened to Silent Resolve and Our Place Under the Sun before, like when I had, when I was like listening to some Billy Sherwood related stuff on Shuffle a while ago, because like stuff was like floating back when I was listening to those. But yeah, listening to all these tracks, I do think that might be a concept album, or at least very similar themes, because Silent Resolve does mention like watch the fall of an empire, and then you got the next track, Empire Over. And yeah, I really like the title of this album, Valley of the Windmill. Like it's got a very mystical sounding cadence to it, if that makes sense.
That's cool. I want to check that out. I don't think I've ever heard that one at all.
Yeah, like this one is like I said, it's really proggy. So I think on my favorites, like I really like all these albums, but for me, it's kind of a toss-up between the debut album and Valley of the Windmill. Like, I think for some people, it could come down to, if something sounds too proggy, it might feel a little overwhelming to them. 'Cause I remember when that Anderson Stolt album, I love that album, but some people thought that some of it was kind of overwhelming and like how much layers there were to that. But yeah, Valley of the Windmill seems to be a favorite. I remember a while ago, I don't remember what episode we were doing, but someone chimed in saying you really need to listen to Valley of the Windmill. And
yes,
it was
I remember that.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where I felt like, man, I'm really slacking like all these years and I haven't gone through all these CIRCA albums. But
imagine how I feel. Yeah. I got to get with the program.
Right.
Interesting. Well, anything Billy goes on Billy Sherwood's birthday today. So I have a question for Steve, and you can all chime in as well as everybody watching chiming in on their favorite Billy Sherwood moments with
and
or CIRCA. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. After this question thing, I'll go ahead and put like one more bit of info about CIRCA.
Do you want to do that first?
Okay, yeah, we can do that first.
Yeah, because my question's not CIRCA related; it's more Billy related.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So I remembered reading somewhere that there was like a fifth CIRCA studio album in the works.
Oh,
and
like presently in the works, or in the works and put away since?
So I'll go ahead and read this bit from Henry Potts' site, Bondegezu.
What's the
So
date? Sorry, what's the time context of this?
it's gonna say in the quote that I'm gonna say.
Okay.
So in an interview from March 2023, Sherwood said he was working on a new CIRCA album, describing it as nearly complete. He said the lineup was himself, Tony Kaye, Jay Schellen, and Jimmy Haun.
Oh,
Which I guess that makes sense given that, by that time they were all working together again in Arc of Life. And, reading this up, I got really excited seeing that Jay and Jimmy were back in CIRCA. I love what Scott and Rick did for that last album, but there's always something exciting about seeing returning musicians in these things,
yeah.
And in an April 2024 interview, Sherwood said, quote, "We've slowly actually been formulating another record. It's probably my fault that it's slowed down because I've just been so busy doing other things. But that said, we're very close to another record being done, which is called Zentopia. It's just a matter of me getting together with Tony Kaye to finish up the last sort of overdubs, and we're there," unquote.
Interesting. So, that was a year ago next month.
Yeah, so hopefully that comes out soon. Yeah. And yeah, in terms of the lineups, I think CIRCA is in an interesting position where, it's not held under scrutiny like other bands where people will be like, oh, it's not CIRCA without this drummer or that guitarist. Like it feels like they could kind of just do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's interesting. But I'm curious to listen to all these in a row and see how much the lineup change affects the sound or not,
Right.
So that's interesting. So here's my question. Of all the Yes contributions Billy's done as a musician, not as a producer, not as a engineer, but as a musician and singer, what is your favorite? Is there a favorite single piece, or is there a favorite album?
Dang, that's a tough question. Yeah, because it's really tough because it's like you think about the Yes albums he was on, but you also think of like his solo stuff and CIRCA, Conspiracy.
Right, but I'm referring just to Yes.
Oh, okay, within Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I feel like there's stuff on the last couple albums that he co-wrote that I really like. Like I know it'd be easy to go to Open Your Eyes, but like given like his stamp is like all over that. But
yeah, but I think his stamp is very much also on the latter.
Right.
And the Live at House of Blues DVD, when you see him do everything he's doing, he's playing rhythm guitar, he plays lead on a couple of songs, he's singing all over the place. That I just love that album, and I hear his influence on it so much, especially, but not limited to, but you really hear his voice in the Yes choir. You got the original three, most notable three, with John Anderson, Chris Squire, and Steve Howe, and Billy's extra layer in there adds so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just looking at the track list from the most recent albums. I feel like minus The Man from The Quest, it talks about scientific stuff, and like you can really feel like the lyrics and some of the sound are very and the bass is great on that one. Like I don't know if that would be my absolute favorite Billy Yes thing, but like occasionally like some of those tracks just randomly pop into my head.
Interesting.
Sorry, did you say your favorite just now, or
yeah, mine's the latter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a huge nod to like, I love the production of Open Your Eyes. And I think New State of Mind and Fortune Seller still to me are just mind-blowingly nice, big, fat live sound. Turn that stuff up and it sounds so good. It really does.
Yeah. And look, sorry, I'm just looking at the comments real quick. So Peter Del Moore says, "Hi guys, you were kind enough to mention this one in the past. Billy played drums on this and remixed it for me. He pushed up my bass track way more in the new mix as well, and I was genuinely ecstatic to hear very Yes-like rhythm section. I don't think many fans know about it. It is my personal favorite." And I'll go ahead and share the YouTube link to your song there. It's titled Flying Part 2. And also, I think, Peter, it was your birthday yesterday or the day before or something. Yeah, I meant to say something, but it's hard for me to like wish everyone on social media happy birthday these days.
Well, that's how you do it, though. You just say, "Today I wish everybody happy birthday" on social media.
Yeah. I saw this one post where it's like, the happy birthday to everyone born this year. I'm tired.
Born this year. Wait.
Or everyone who has a birthday this year.
This year. Yeah. That's better.
Yeah. So that basically covers your bases.
Thanks for chiming in, Peter. We'll check that out. That's cool.
Yeah. I remember listening to that, but yeah, I'll check that out again.
And Will's Rush page says he's worked on so many projects with Yes and others. Wow. I'm being educated as I am somewhat a new Yes fan. What are you, 5 years old? No, I'm kidding. No, that's cool. That's cool. And that's a big thing that we're both proud of, Steve and myself, is that, and same thing with Trump Talk TV. They were created so that people can share information, learn from each other in the fandom of things, and also from the artists and other people we have on when we do interviews. So that's really nice of you to point out and say. David Wendell says, he says close. He's 57.
Will said he's 57.
Yeah. And David Wendell says, don't know if you talked about it earlier on an earlier show, or earlier in the show. I came on late, but what about the wonderful stuff on Arc of Life and its similarities and differences compared to CIRCA? We did touch on that a little bit.
We touched on Arc of Life a bit. Like, I think the differences, like, I feel like Billy brings like a consistent type of sound in some of the things he works on. But
I was going to say CIRCA has a better logo.
But funny enough, the word arc, like the letters in arc, are in the word CIRCA. But in Arc of Life, they could kind of, play with Billy's vocals and John Davison's vocals. So I think there's definitely similarities, but also like you can see like what the differences are and why that justifies like being a separate band from CIRCA and separate from Yes as well.
Right.
And Peter says his birthday was on the 10th. Okay, yeah. So earlier this week. But yeah, like you can definitely see similarities, but also they feel different enough to me. And as Dave Kersner told us a few months ago, Billy and Fernando Perdomo are doing like some sort of trio project. Right. So we'll have
that'll be cool
on that.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to mention Will's comment inspired me to do so. My mind went down a little rabbit hole, so I'm just going to share it with everybody. He says, Rush collector and fan for 45 years. Quick note, my entry point for Rush was 2112 when a friend of mine brought the album over, and I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I bought All the World's a Stage. I typically buy live albums first if they exist, if it's a new band I'm being introduced to, or I used to in the olden days. So we just completed February being a drumming challenge. Theme was Neil Peart in our membership site. And our membership site isn't just for drummers, just like Drum Talk TV is not just for drummers. It's for all types of music fans. But I'm going to put the website and a code in here for everybody to get 3 free months. If you use this code at checkout, 3 free months as a premium member. And when you get in there, poke around, and you can see the Neil Peart Drumming Challenge. And we're finishing up. We're doing our best to finish judging it right now. Like, we're literally right now. I'm supposed to make the announcement tomorrow at noon. And if I don't, Steve will be mad because he helps keep everything on track. So I don't know. If I can't get it mad, Steve, if I can't get it done, Steve, don't be mad. We might have to delay it a couple of days. We'll send out an email to all the contestants. But it's really neat. My point is, it's really neat seeing everybody honor all these great drummers. We've done John Bonham, Keith Moon, Neil Peart. Next month is Vinnie Paul, and we did Phil Collins in January for his birthday month. We got
it's Vinnie Paul this month. Yeah.
So the announcement supposed to come 2 weeks after the month because we need time to judge all these videos, and we got a lot of entries for Neil. So if you're a Rush fan, if you're a Neil Peart fan, if you're just a music fan, folks, go in and check this out. I'm going to hit the button, and we do music live on a private link. We do live music trivia game shows, which are a lot of fun. Should I throw the promo in there, Steve, or is that getting too far off track?
No, that's too off track. But okay. I'm trying to make sure that you put the right code.
BTTV free 3. I have the list of codes.
No, the number 3 is supposed to come before the word free.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay, so the actual code is, I'm not doubting Steve, but I just got to fix my list if it's wrong. I have free 3 is what I have.
Look at your text messages from earlier.
Earlier today?
No, from earlier this week.
Oh, okay. So can you correct it?
Okay.
Oh, and thank you very much, Will. We'll do the same. So anyhow, Billy really is a very prolific musician and songwriter and producer. He's just all over the place. And as far as we know, with everything he knows how to do, he uses it all. There isn't one area that is just kind of, I do this, but it's just kind of, it's back there. I don't really, it's like everything he does, we're always getting stuff from, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, which is great. Yeah. So, gosh, I just gave that other code out on a podcast today. I'm gonna have to. It wasn't live though, so I'm gonna send the producer.
Just have them edit, just have them put the audio in an editing program and move the words around.
Yeah. Well, if they got show notes with it as well, but cool.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Billy.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Get him back on. So I think that's it for us on this.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we're looking forward to seeing even more comments. If you think of something, drop it in. If you're watching on the archive, thanks for getting this far. And we'd love to see your comments as well. Everything we do live on Facebook and YouTube archives on those channels. And then Steve also puts it elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can write us if you have comments, suggestions, questions at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. You can also listen to the audio versions on anchor.fm/yesshift, which we're easy to find on any podcast search platform.
Yeah, for sure. And Peter says don't sleep on Billy's Citizen albums. I'm way into the first one, and we'll get more into the second one.
Gosh, we didn't even go there. Wow.
Right. Yeah, definitely gotta check those out. But yeah. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks.